to do. Next thing, super simple. So we're going to take what we did, which is the gesture lines, and we're going to essentially put that into number one most important thing besides the gesture lines, besides everything that you learn. Everything you learn, super important in art. But main thing, skeletons. We're going to talk about. I'm very bad at segues. We're going to talk about skeletons today. And after that, we're going to take the skeletons and we're going to put them into muscle mannequins. And then we're going to take those muscle mannequins and we're going to essentially go, well, how do we put that shit into gesture? So you're probably wondering, what the fuck does any of this mean? So I'll explain that. So a skeleton is not actually like creating bones. You're not making bones. You're actually doing quick little pivot points. You're essentially doing, oh god, what's it called? Rigging. Rigging a 3D model. You know how like you get a bone and you got that guy and it's like, oh well, I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna make that and that though. That right there, that's part of the arm. And I take that and I'm gonna go, all right, well that part right there, that's the rest of this. That's like arm 2. And then I'm gonna take this and that's gonna be like part of the that's part of the wrist and then it's like and all that fun jazz and like that's the hand. Like that's the hand, right? Like when you rig it, it's essentially you have these little pivot points. You have the parts that you're actually going to be moving, and then these are the parts that essentially allow it to move in any direction that you want it. So it's kind of like that. That's what a skeleton is. So a skeleton is essentially taking a body, putting it into very simple forms, and then you take that body and you essentially use it to create movement. You take a gesture line, you make that into a skeleton, you take the skeleton, you add some muscle to it, and then you take the muscle, and then you add things to it. So I'm going to have essentially a person. I'm just going to have a person. He's going to be like, we're going to have the head be like right here, right? Oh no, I'm still on line tool. I am so prepared for this. So we're going to have this guy essentially just kind of be right like that. Like that's a dude, right? That we're going to have him be right there. So we're going to start him off right there. That's going to be my guy. So a basic skeleton is, that's the neck, and then boom. That's where your cutoff for the neck is. So now you know, neck, head, done. So instead of actually building off the body like a normal kind of fancy artist would, you would actually kind of break it down. So this is that. So now you know, okay, well I know that the shoulder's here, shoulder here, done. I know that, boom, like it's very easy. So there, and I'm gonna kind of stop it there. And then I know I'm gonna have kind of a little, this is basically my hips, and then it's going to be right here, this is where my hip bones are, and then boom, ooh, and then it's going to be, ooh, nope, not that, and then So what you're doing is you're kind of creating a very simple idea of a person. This is just what a skeleton is. It's just a person. So I'm going to break down, I keep saying break down. I'm going to explain why everything is in this weird ass proportion. I'm using very basic anatomy to figure out where everything ends for the skeleton. So your hands right here, actually don't end like most. I see a lot of beginner artists. They end it like right here, like where the hip is, or they end it like right. This is where their hand would be, like they end it right at their shoulders. But no, it actually ends just slightly past the groin, slightly past. And if you don't believe me, stand up and you can actually put your arms down and you can see where they lie, and they end just slightly past it, maybe just a little farther down, like maybe right here. But other than that, that's kind of the line or area that you want your hands to kind of end. That's where it's going to be. So you now know that basically your hips are just a little higher up than your wrist. So that makes it easier to figure out where things are going to be in proportion to one another, which is nice. When it comes to the shoulders, you know, for most people, their shoulders are going to be the same width as their hips. So when you actually start filling this person out, you know these hips are going to be bigger, or you know these shoulders are going to be smaller. When you start kind of figuring out, when you start adding extra kind of like things for the arms, like you want an elbow joint here, you want a wrist joint here, then you're going to start adding more. So you're going to do a shoulder right here. I'm going to actually do this a little farther off. So this is where the shoulder joint is, and then you're going to figure out that your shoulder, that your midpoint, where your antecubital fossa right here, where that is, that's actually halfway down. So it's right there. And then that is your hand. So I see a lot of people accidentally end up making this too short or too long. And I've had that issue for a very long time drawing. So instead, I'm going to do a very, very, very simple idea. You want it to be halfway. Halfway. Everything kind of goes almost in thirds. Oh my goodness. It's almost like the body itself comes in thirds. Even the feet. So for the hips, same thing. This is the hip bone. Just so you know, this is the hip bone. There we go. So that's a hip bone at a weird angle. Ignore it. Ignore it. But this part of the leg would kind of go down, and then it would stop about like right here, and then you know that's where the knee would be. Now, if you're doing it at an odd angle, if you're doing it sideways, you're not going to make it like this. You're not going to do that. You're going to do this. Just so when you're making the skeleton, you know this is the way the person's facing. So this is specifically where the leg is facing. It makes it easier for you. So that's what I'm doing with this. So it's going there, and then you bring that part back. And then it ends. See? It's very easy to figure out once you know your proportions. The easiest way to do this, the easiest way to know the proportions of everything, and you're going to hate it, because this part is the hardest part for anyone to do, without fail, is, I'm going to write it in big bold letters, is to use references, specifically real life models. This is what you have to do if you want to figure out where skeletons go. And I can prove that, and I'm going to prove it. And I'm going to take my lady. Where's my lady? Give me my lady back. There's my lady. Yes. So I think I've just resigned to having this lady be my specific pose person for the majority of the time. So if I were to break her down into a skeleton, if I saw this person at a cafe, which is what I had to do in order to get better at doing skeletons and muscle mannequins, I would have to go out into my daily life. I would sit down at a Starbucks, be that douchey person that would look like, oh, I'm writing a manuscript. Oh, I'm an artist. I'm a freelancer. I would have that with a little beret on, and I would essentially just sit there and I would draw very quick sketches of people. It would just be very simple, very quick, and it would just be like this. I would see this person, I would just go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I would go boom, 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 boom. So it would just be the most simple, quick sketches that I could of someone. So this looks weird, and it doesn't look like a person, but it's the basic gist of a person. I put a quick pivot of this is where that's going to end. This is kind of where my belly button is. This is where I want the butt to stick out. This is how it's going to be. If I were to do this in a very classic concept of what a skeleton is supposed to look like, which I would be screamed at if I didn't by my professor, it would be boom, boom, and then it would be boom, boom, heh, 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 nah, 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 nah. See? Easy. Simple. This is a very classic simple skeleton. It's not hard. It's just when you sit down and you watch these people, you get used to knowing where everything goes. It makes it easier for you. The first time you do it, you're not going to get it perfectly. If I did this without looking at her, I already know for a fact I'm not going to get it perfect. I'm not even going to watch. I'm just going to do this, and I'm just going to base it off of what I remember of her. So I'm just going to do that. I think our arm goes like this. And then it's going to go, and it's like that. And then, yeah, and then, heh. And then, yeah. And then, and then it's a, and then it's a, So I already know, see, my pose is different. And I already can see I make my torsos much larger. But that's fine. This is what it's going to look like at first. Once you get used to it, however, it gets easier. And if you want to start off at first, just kind of like finding pictures online because, there's a pandemic, and you just kind of want to trace it and just say, oh, this is where the pivot points are, this is where the elbow is, where the arm would be, where the hips would be, where the hip joints would be, where the knees would be. If you want to start doing it that way, that's fine. That's okay. Just don't have it be your main way of figuring out skeletons and doing poses, because then doing this perpetually, that becomes a crutch. And that essentially ruins your overall ability to draw, because then you get used to solely using online references and other people's art to better your art. You need to go out in the real world and do it, because it overall increases your mental library to just pull a reference out of your patoot and just be like, oh yeah, I want to do a person, fucking sitting, oh yeah, it's easy, I'm just gonna do that, I'm just gonna, one second, I'm just gonna make that all, yeah, there we go, and I'm just gonna make a, fuck, I'm just making a person sitting, I'm just gonna, yeah, and then I'm just gonna make it go like this, and then I'm just gonna do that, and then I'm gonna go, yeah, yeah, and I'm going to have them kind of maybe have a cross leg, so I know this one's closer, and I'm just going to do that, and then I have them go, yeah, and they're just sitting there, and they're just chilling, and they're sitting on a nice little chair, yeah, a little shitty chair, no, little shitty ass chair, look at that shitty ass chair, yeah, so doing that, so literally just going out in the real world and doing this perpetually, just going out, sitting down, seeing a person at your local coffee house, or just at a restaurant, not a restaurant, we closed down restaurants again. I live in Pennsylvania. Or at a fucking Barnes & Noble, and you just sit down with a sketchbook and you just do this for just like, it doesn't have to be forever. It could just be for, I don't know, an hour. Just an hour long doing that. It really does help. It's just very quick, very simple. You don't have to take an hour and a half or 20 minutes on each skeleton. Just very quick. Do them in like a minute or like 2 minutes. Just very quick, simple. Okay, I'm doing it this way. 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 Just very simple. You can't, it's okay to use skeletons as the base and then end up going farther. But most people don't just stick with, oh yeah, skeletons doing this, and then that, and then this, and then that, and hello? Yeah, done. Like, no, people don't just stick with that, and then they just build a person off that. Most people end up sticking to something else, which is they take this and then they make what's called a muscle mannequin off of it. So a muscle mannequin is a little tougher. So I'll just quickly build off a very simple skeleton. I'll just do There. All right, so this is a very basic overall skeleton. I put a dividing line of this is where the chest is going to end, this is where the hips are going to be, and that's the only thing else I added. But other than that, simple motherfucking skeleton. So a muscle mannequin is where you take this and you add the rough concept of muscle definition. You're not going to add biceps. You're not going to add the triceps. You're not going to do any of that because that is bullshit and you don't need to worry about that unless you're trying to make like strong boys. But even then, you're not going to do that in this part. In this part, you're going to focus solely on just the rough idea of what the body's going to look like. This is essentially building the body. So I'm just going to quickly zoom in some more. There we go. There's my boy. I forgot, I just realized he's missing a shoulder piece. Don't worry about that. So what you do for this is I'm going to have him facing this way. So what I would do then is after I make a very quick sketch of the face of, this is what his face is going to look like. His face is going to be simple. This is the neck. You essentially make a quick concept of the neck. You show where that side is. And then this is where his neck and his shoulders start connecting. This is where his shoulders are. So what you're doing is you're adding. So you don't just start going top down. I do that for the neck. The neck is the part that you essentially start with. But what you do next is easy. You take this, kind of create a dividing line almost, where everything's going to end, and then you create the ribs. So now you know. Here we go. Actually, his ribs are way too small. Fuck, you have floating ribs. There we go. There we go. There's his ribs. So that's his box. This is his box. Going back almost. Whoa, box theory. Hello. So that is where his chest is going to be. Now that you know that, you can take this and you're going to add. You're going to say, okay, this is where this is. So I'm going to add that this, I want him to be kind of fit. I want him to be simple yet fit. So I'm going to add kind of, I'm going to have this, going to have kind of this kind of look going. I'm essentially adding not muscle, I'm adding cylinders. I'm adding a rough shape. For this, what I do whenever I would do muscle mannequins, you don't have to do anything super big. You just add these. This is where this is going to be. Kind of add that rough idea. And then you would just kind of go. See? This is a muscle mannequin. It's not putting a lot of thought into the detail. It is roughly translating, this is what I'm going to have the concept of the body looking like. This is the basic, this is the starting off point. This is your platform. So then you take this is my hips, and as I'm doing this I realize, hey, his hips are too far down. That's fine. I'm gonna change that. So I'm going to take this, and you actually start figuring out if you want this to be a boy or a girl. I'm going to have this be a guy. So I'm going to essentially give him a simple rounded off kind of point. If it was a girl, I'd make it kind of more of a V, but this, he's got a bulge. There. And now, because of that, and because I gave him room, this is where his legs are going to be. So you see why it's called muscle mannequin. It's not because I'm literally defining muscle. It's because I'm giving a rough idea of what the muscles in his body are going to create are going to create for him. It is, if I took this muscle boy and I put skin on top of him, what's he going to look like? So this is a rough concept of what his body will be. And then what I do is, I don't know if this is for all muscle mannequins, but this is for me. I actually just roughly give myself an idea of what I want the kneecap to look like. There we go. So now I know this one's going to face that way, this one's going to face more this way. And then there's the feetsies. Little feetsies. Here we go. All right, so the main thing that's probably the question is, why that? And also, why that? That's easy. That's an easy question to answer. It's because we can't see this dude in 3D. This dude is not a 3D dude. This is a 2D dude. This is my boy. It's not 2D, but it's a 2D dude. So in order to figure out how to make him look almost 3D and show that he has muscle definition, to show that he has more than just sticks for legs or sticks for hands, what you want is you want them to have that dynamic kind of flow to them. You want them to have kind of this nice, easy to see visibility. It's showing the back of the leg essentially without actually showing the back of the leg. And then you make this one a little more concave because it indicates this more prominently. It's fooling the eye. It's genuinely just an illusion. It's you're tricking people into thinking that this is more dynamic and this is more 3D than it really is. The same thing goes with this. You want this arm to look more prominent. You want this arm to have more definition. So when you draw it, you don't want to just draw this and then kind of end it with the wrist. You don't want that. You want to create a character that has definition. So what you do is when this is, let's just say that that's a fucking elbow. You want to show, okay, well, I want this part to kind of be, I want this part to be the top. And I'm going to have this part be the bottom. So you essentially create more meat. You see what I mean? You want to essentially figure out a way to fool and trick the audience into thinking that what they're seeing is more 3D than what it really is. And that is all art is. It's just doing that. It's just making people see something that isn't really there. That's all it is. So see, it's a simple muscle mannequin. You create an idea of where the ribs are, where the abdomen ends, where the hips begin. This heavily indicates whether or not it's going to be a boy or a girl. And then you're going to use this. You're going to use the insides and outsides of these hips to indicate if these legs are going to be facing inwards or outwards. And that's very important, especially if you want to make the stereotypical, I'm going to make these very simple, but like the Japanese, it's like a Japanese trope. I don't know what it's called. It's called like knock-knee, I think, where the girls kind of do that. I don't know. I think it's called knock-knee. I think it's called that. Where they do this. You know what I'm talking about? And then they have those cute little fucking doll shoes. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about? Knock-knee. I'm going to call it knock-knee. This shows her knees are going inward. And her feet and her calves are going outward. See? It's the exact same thing. It's just more stylized. So that is what this is. It's very simple. Muscle mannequins are really tough to do and figure out if you're going to start learning them on clothed models. So in order to actually do really good on them, I'm going to put this in big, bold writing. You have to use nude models. And the reason is because when you use nude models, not only does it make it easier for muscle mannequins to work, it also lets you see where the body begins and where the clothes would end. So essentially, you're just seeing the body. That's all you're seeing. You're seeing its definition, you're seeing all the different types of folds, and and it's not clouded by clothes. That shit. It's not clouded by any types of clothes. That's all it is. So when you want to use muscle mannequins, you have to start using nude models. It also makes it easier for you to play around with shapes because not all of them are going to be these really pretty, like, stereotypically attractive people. Some of them are going to be heavier. Some of them are going to be older. Some of them are going to be more kind of crinkly. Some of them are going to have more folds. Some of them are going to be covered in tattoos. And it lets you sit there and actually try to incorporate that into muscle mannequins. So if I had to draw a woman that was heavier, I would essentially create the chest like this, and then I would kind of have the actual abdomen go out and then in. So then it creates this kind of nice shape. And then when I would start layering it, I would then kind of figure out, all right, well, I know that her breasts would kind of start here. They would kind of be like that. Ooh. And then I know the other one kind of would go like right here. And they both kind of had this nice shape going. They both kind of have this shape. And then I know she had kind of a little tummy. She had a bit of a tum-tum. So I'm going to do that. And there's her belly button. And then it just, see? Look at that. I just made a genuine, simple concept of what a more robust or voluptuous woman would be. Just based off of what the shapes of a muscle mannequin would be. This is why it's important if you want to use it to use nude models. Do I use muscle mannequins? No. But do I incorporate aspects of it into my art? Yes. And it's because I learned them. I learned how to use muscle mannequins. It's highly important you use them. So I'm just going to cover them. So how do we take this and how do we take it and add it to dynamic posing? How do we add it to gesture lines? Easy. Super fucking easy. Super fucking easy. So here we go. Are you ready? Are you fucking ready for this? Alright, so I'm going to start with something simple. Let's start with, so I'm going to do a person at a bar. Simple. Person at a bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my line. I'm going to make this kind of a brown line just so I know this is where the bar is going to end. That's where the bar is going to end. Boom. Come on, get perfectly centered for me. Yes. And then because I'm that weirdo, and because I'm that weirdo of the group, gotta know that it's in 3D for me. Yes. Alright. So we have that, and I'm going to do a very simple gesture line. Let me just. Can I delete this? Can I delete this? Can I delete you? Can I delete you all? I'm deleting you all. Yes. 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 Alright, there we go. So, this is nice and simple. Just going to take that and make it simple. Now, I'm going to do what's called my gesture line. So, I'm not going to just have a person just sitting here. I thought I put you to freehand. Alright. So, I'm not just going to have a person sitting here and just being like, No, that's boring. That's a boring pose. I'm going to do what's called dynamic posing. Woo! It's very, very useful to keep things interesting. So I'm going to start by making it look like they've been at the bar for a while. They've had a few drinks, and I'm just gonna make it nice and simple. So we're gonna have their head be right there, right? So we're gonna start with their head being right there. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have. So that is my line of action, and I'm going to have. You're probably looking at that and just saying that's just an S. Yeah. And then I'm going to have one arm be kind of like right here. And I'm going to have one hand be there like he's talking. Yeah, see? Nice and simple. So I'm going to just push this gesture line just a little more. 1 second. Make this a little more like that. Make this one a little more like that. No, a little more like that. There we go. That's what I wanted. So here is my basic gesture line. And I'm going to also add that. This is where I'm going to probably have the seat be, but you're not going to see it. But that's my gesture line. Next, I'm going to add. There's a reason why I keep using reds and blues. I'll get to that. I was traumatized in class. But next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my skeleton. So this is my gesture line. Started off with my gesture line. Now I'm going to add my skeleton. So I'm going to say, about right here is where the neck will be. Next I'm going to add where the shoulders will be. Shoulders are going to kind of be like that. I know that already. Then I'm going to have 1, 2, done. 1, 2, whoop. 2, done. And then, easy. Easy enough. See? So now I know it looks kind of more like, yeah, it looks almost like a ball dropping. But yeah, see? Nice and easy. Nice and easy. Next, I'm going to add a concept for the muscle mannequin. So I'm going to start, I'm going to start kind of creating. Here's his rule of thirds. And then I'm just gonna go, he's gonna be like that. I already know what character I'm drawing for this one. This one's easy. There. Like that. There we go. Easy. So now, I'm gonna have the neck. I know for a fact, since I see these lines because of the skeleton, I know the neck's going to be kind of like this. It's going to be a little more kind of in that regard. It's going to be tilted. I'm going to use this to connect them. I'm going to have my shoulders kind of pop out. I'm going to use this to show they're going to be leaning in. They're leaning in, and you know they've had a couple drinks, so their center line is right here. Yeah, their center line's right there. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm actually doing the actual pose to myself. So that's the pose. So I'm going to just kind of create that. There. And then, very simple, there we go. There, see? And that's a muscle mannequin. So that's how you implement it into dynamic posing. So if I were to take this and start putting it into what I know already, I can start putting in box theory and I can start putting other things, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to make this a little bit of a brighter red just so you can see it. I'm going to make that a little lighter. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to say, all right, well, I already know for a fact that's the neck. You know, that's my neck. And I'm going to kind of just decrease that. I'm going to decrease that feel. But I'm going to keep that one kind of high. I'm going to make this one, yeah, a little better. And when I'm filling it out, this is going to be a lady. I know that her boobs kind of, their breasts don't, boobs don't look like this. They don't. And they don't tend to look like that. Those are oldie boobs. Those are saggy boobs. I make them look a little more realistic. They have some weight to them. So I know that's what her breasts are going to look like. They're going to have some weight to them. And I'm not going to make her big busted. I'm not going to make her as big busted as most typical people I see. She's endowed, but not super endowed. So that is her rough idea. I'm going to kind of give an idea of, since I already know, that's just an idea of where I want our strip to look like. And then you take this and you start adding on. You just kind of say, all right, well, I know her shoulder, I know her arm isn't going to be an actual beefy boy. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to start kind of just attaching. You are attaching it. And you're essentially taking it and you are changing slightly what things look like. So I'm smoothing it out, smoothing it out, smoothing it out. I'm going to show that this is what I want it to look like. Elbows are not pointed, they are very smooth. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to just kind of add that right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Gonna make that nice and smooth. And then I'm going to kind of put a little tiny crease right here just so I know. There. Ah, that looks a little tiny. Looks a little tiny. And you don't quite know how a thing's going to look like. You can actually like kind of topple it on top of each other. But I don't like doing that. So what I do instead is I just go back to box theory and I just say, well, how is this box going to look like on top of a box? How does box look on top of box? So I just kind of make a 3D box. I know that's what the box is going to kind of be. It's going to be like that. And then I'm going to have that be right there. And then I know it's going to be kind of like this. There we go. There we go. There we go. That is better. There. Because now I know exactly where it is. I can just kind of go in and I can just kind of change it. Ooh, that's too close of a color. I can just go in and I can just slightly start fixing it a little. Because now I know where it ends. See? Easy. So now I know where that's going to end. I know where everything else is going to end. I know this is where I want my hand to be. I'm going to slowly integrate. How do I want that hand to look? Oh God, how do I want that hand to look? I'm going to slowly start creating more complex hands as this goes on. But I know hands are very tough, so I'm not going to make them as complex as possible. But there we go. So that's my rough definition. And to create a very more, and to create kind of a more basic one, I'm going to just go over it and I'm going to do my box here very quickly and just kind of make sure everything looks up to snuff for me. There we go. There's my box. There's my box. There's my box. Very simple, very quick. There we go. Yep, everything looks to be about in the right order, which is great. Perfect. All right, awesome. So now that I have all that, I'm going to just quickly go in and fill it in one more time. That way I can just give you a rough idea of what everything looks like when it's all finished. So let me just do that. Get off my pen. Get off there. Get off there. Yay. All right, here I go. Nice and simple. It's not the best thing I've drawn, but it's all right. So all I did was to go back to it. Let me just get all these boys out of here. So there's my table. So I started with my quick gesture line. After that, I did a quick skeleton. And for that quick skeleton of just figuring out little pinpoints of this is the neck, this is the shoulder, these are the arms, and like this is where the chest is going to be. I started doing a muscle mannequin of just showing this is where the main chest, the line of the main division of the chest is going to be. So I now know, it's pointing out that way. And I've just filled it out like that. And then I did the same thing with the arms and the neck. And after that, I also put in that little face. Then, just kind of started redefining it, started figuring out where her breasts are going to be, started adding some boxes to figure out the actual dimensions of the arms, kind of the same thing for the box over here, started kind of adding quick sketches of what I want done, and then after that, I just started adding things over and over until the finished product comes out. See? It's not that hard. If you just saw this, it's just like, how do you get to that? Well, it's easy. You start off simple. You start off with the basics, and then you just work your way up. See?